Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 63rd edition of Fan Fuel Motorsports Podcast, a podcast where fans fuel talk about motorsport. And you can see one of our favorite guests is back. He's standing up under me, Keith Marek. Welcome back, Keith. Um,
Howdy.
how have you been since the last time we saw you?
Been good. Work's been busy, and I got to say my racing life been a little busy too.
I think that is true. Before we get into just what you've been doing the past couple of weeks, I do want to say that we got notification probably about 20 minutes ago that Carson, host of our Feeling Good, no injury update, but he looks to be racing this weekend in Sonoma. Uh, Suarez will be um, his sub driver should he need it. So, I mean, guys, are you kind of still concerned like we were earlier this week with the injury, or you think you're good because he says he's good?
Oh man, I feel like I am concerned from like a medical standpoint, but from the other side of it, I think usually if a driver plans to drive, they most of the time they finish the race. So I think he's going to start the race. He's probably going to get his points. So I don't think it's going to be a concern for him playoff wise.
Yeah, I mean, if obviously I'd like to hear an update on what the injury was and how bad it is, but if he's going to get in the truck, I mean, if he starts it, he's probably going to end up finishing the sumbitch.
I mean, you're going to Sonoma, and that's a lot of elevation changes, a lot of shifting, a lot of turning. Definitely a lot different feel inside of a racing vehicle than you would on an oval. So if he's gonna commit to running at Sonoma, I think he should be all right, which is great to hear.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you went to the greatest spectacle in racing on
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago. I've got to ask, what was your trip to Motorsports Mecca like?
So I went there last year for the IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader, and walking into Indy is incredible. I mean, you walk around, you see the pagoda, you feel the history that's in that place, but it was an entirely different feeling walking in there for the Indianapolis 500. Same place, but such a different experience. Um, 325,000 people are surrounding you, and you feel every bit of the importance of it. Um, you walk through the gates and you just know you're there to see the biggest race in the world. Um, the fan experience was top notch. Lots of great stuff all around. Um, Lots of friendly people. Really, really great. The weather was phenomenal. My seats were over in turn 3, so I was walking through the infield towards there's a tunnel that leads under the short chute between 3 and 4. And as you're walking by, the snake pit's over there. And I mean, my fucking chest was just beaten out of myself
Yeah.
because of the bass from that stage. And it was probably like a quarter mile away from me. But I mean, it was unbelievable. They do such a good job for the fans. The Wi-Fi capabilities, unbelievable. Thank you so much, Roger Penske, for all the Verizon towers you put up there. No, but like it was so cool. And I plopped down in my seat, and as the pre-race ceremony started, you really started to feel how special it was. And they played taps. They had the national anthem. They had "God Bless America." Um, but I think when Jim Cornelison sang "Back Home Again" in Indiana, it didn't feel real. Like
Right.
it was just like, nah, there's no shot. I'm here. There's no way. It felt like I was watching this on like YouTube or something. But it was just like, no, like I'm here, So um, the racing was awesome. It's not that it took a while to get good. It was just you really understood how much of a chess match it really is when you're sitting there and you're watching these drivers formulate runs. You're watching them make their decisions. It takes a few laps for them to finally figure out, okay, this is when I want to make my move. And it was so cool. And the fans that are all there, a lot of them are Indiana natives, and this is something they've been doing for years. And I mean, they were just so pumped. And I think the coolest moment of it all was Connor Daly taking the race lead. That was sick. I
Yeah,
mean,
you could hear it
everybody.
on the TV.
Everybody, man. I mean, it was fans and the crowd were the same level of volume. It was unfreaking believable. But yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. And then, of course, being a Jimmy fan, going to see him race was so cool. I know we had a lot of issues, probably because of the fact that his qualifying spot wasn't as great as it should have been. But he did a great job. First Indy 500. I can't imagine that it's all that easy to hop into an Indy car and go 220 miles an hour for 500 miles. But got to see him lead a lap, and before he wrecked out of the race, I got to say it was a pretty good day.
Well, hell yeah, that was a pretty good 500. One of the better ones in the last couple of years. But I gotta say something on one of your points. You said when they sing back home in Indiana, it felt like it wasn't real. I remember my first Indy 500. I was like, damn, I guess I'm an Indiana native now because it just makes you feel so good when you hear that song.
Yeah, man, it was so cool. But the coolest part about that whole situation was like they had the Thunderbirds do the flyover for the national anthem, and then once Jim Cornelison was done with back home again in Indiana, Roger Penske comes over the PA system and has the drivers fire up their engines, and they came screaming back from the backstretch, and they had this awesome little array that they had. It was so cool, and just the pageantry of the whole event was really special, just as special as the race itself.
Hell yeah. Colton's got something he wants to hit real quick.
Yeah. So while you're telling us about that, our guy Drew Mason commented. He said, "Love being live in a moment like that." I want to shout out Drew because today he won a sweepstakes from Craftsman, and he is going to get a free trip to the Indianapolis Road Course here in a couple weeks. So that is kick ass.
He's gonna have
man.
a great time, man. He's gonna have such a good time. I mean, with this new car, with the next gen car and Indy car, I mean, it is a magical place. It is so much fun, and I hope he has a great time because it absolutely was one of my favorites that I've gone to was the road course.
Yeah, that's awesome. It would be cool to have somebody who's so connected to Fan Fuel and been a listener for a while now, hitting on Indy, just like we had with Keith a couple weeks ago. I'm not even gonna say anything. Anyways, we'll move on. So we're gonna do a quick show tonight. Keith's got to go to work because he's got Wawa to manage. So we're gonna try and get him out pretty quickly so he doesn't get late to work because we all know how that goes with your boss. So we're just gonna fire it up. This weekend we had some racing. We had the Indy GP at Detroit, which was pretty good. Some different strategies going on, but we're gonna go into woke or joke and we're gonna talk about the gateway races. So first up was the truck race, and Derek Kraus chooses the outside on the final restart, even though he's in second place. Woke or joke?
Oh, it's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. I don't want to be the person that makes those decisions, but I feel like in the heat of the moment, I kind of questioned it. So from my point of view, I would go joke, but it's only because of how many laps were left in the race. If there was 10 laps left in the race and not 2, then I would have taken the top because I think he would have eventually got to second, and that's where he wanted to be. But with 2 laps to go and you're boxed in back there, you don't know if you're going to get back into second place. That's a gamble. So you're giving up track position with 2 laps to go. So I think it's joke just because there was such little time left in the race.
I'm going to say woke because we know that the Truck Series is mainly just a expensive demolition derby most weeks. And especially with the green-white checkered, I see what he was thinking, that if someone or multiple cars were going to try to dive on the inside, you would at least have an escape route to kind of shoot up high and hear the run coming through a spotter. So I kind of understood it, especially in that moment there. He wants to try to get his first win. He doesn't want to get cleaned out, give himself an escape route.
I got to go joke. He had the race lead late, and he ended up getting caught for the race lead. But, I mean, you got 2 laps to go, and this is a racetrack. It's a flat track. You're going to have to go in there hot and heavy, and you kind of push the truck to your outside up a little, like a half a lane, you kind of get a little bit of separation and try to pull down the backstretch and take what you can. Taking the outside lane, you're subjecting yourself to, just as Colton said, the inside lane pushing up. I'd much rather be the pusher than the pushy, because you're going to have people going 3 wide. You're going to have people trying to make a move on you. I would at least like to have that control than to hope that somebody doesn't just bully me over. And he ended up finishing 7th, so it was almost like he never even gave himself a fair shot to go and try to win the race. So I'm going to go joke.
Yeah, I'm going to have to concur with that. I mean, you guys all hit on something different. That was a reason for him not to go up there. I think the biggest one is the 2 laps to go, though. I mean, come on. You can try and count on another restart happening, but it's also not always going to happen despite being in the trucks. I don't care, Freddie Kraft, that you guys sucked on the inside all race long for restarts. It's the last restart. You choose front row. Doesn't matter. That's just it. So that's a joke decision for me. All right, moving to the West Coast and Portland International Raceway. We had the Xfinity cars out in Portland for the first time. They did not have live pit stops, and they had a pretty wet, dry race. But we're going to focus on one thing that happened, and that is a lot of really controversy from that race coming from Jesse Iwuji getting into Ty Gibbs under caution. But I really want to ask you guys, woke or joke, Ty Gibbs gets his spot back after being wrecked under caution. Let's go with Keith first.
Want to go me first?
Yeah.
To be completely honest with you, I'm going to go woke, simply because of the fact that I don't think we've ever had a situation like that in recent memory, where the race leader gets dumped under caution by a lap driver. I can't say that I would find it all that fair to have him drop to the back when it really wasn't his fault. You have like a situation like Marcos Ambrose at Sonoma, a little over a decade ago, where that was a decision that he made to try to save fuel, and you kind of take a risk like that, you're going to lose your position. Ty Gibbs did everything right, and he just got run over. So, I mean, there's certain situations, where NASCAR, they'll kind of fuck themselves over, like the Texas All-Star race, but this was a situation where I think that NASCAR got it right and allowed him to have a spot back. So I'm going to go woke.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I'll go woke too, because obviously he couldn't control it. Iwuji came from like a mile back, and I don't think anybody would have ever expected that. So I agree with that. And second of all, if he loses a few spots, what's it going to change? It's Ty Gibbs. He's just going to wreck everybody in turn 1 and just keep bowling his way to the front. He's probably still going to get the lead either way. So I think you might as well just put him in the lead over having him just bully his way to the lead, if that makes sense.
If he's going to get the lead back anyway, why put him back up there? Joke.
Because you don't want to see everyone get dumped.
Well, that's on Ty.
Like
at that point. That's on Ty at that point. I'm going to go joke because it just is. I understand why he did. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not upset. I'm not mad that he did. I don't think he should have, because it's just more inconsistency from NASCAR. You brought up the Marcus Ambrose thing. What happens if Ty were, I don't know, to hit a big puddle of fucking rain and slide off the track a little bit? Does he get a spot back then?
No.
What if a monsoon would have came down in one of the corners, right? And he would have slid off. Does he get a spot back then?
No.
Does he get a spot back in literally any scenario other than Jesse Iwuji kamikazing it in there? No, he doesn't. I think this would have been a great opportunity for Ty to get sent to the back and NASCAR to pull Jesse's license, because we all know that needs to fucking happen.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from that point, yeah, but I think they could separate like driver error versus like freak accident.
And that's why I'm not upset about it, is because all in all, I get why he did. But I would have liked to have just seen the consistency of NASCAR come in and say, nope, sorry, you didn't maintain speed.
Yeah. So my question before I give my final verdict is, where did he come back out onto the racetrack at? Was he behind the whole field, or was it?
No, he was only behind.
Nate, you're muted.
Like second, maybe? I don't know.
He wasn't behind.
So, all right then even more of a joke. for me. So I'm going to agree with Nate, with Colton here and say that you've got to have consistency first and foremost. Secondly, anytime that you don't maintain speed, like the aforementioned Sonoma incident with Marcus Ambrose, he got to keep this position where he blended back in. He didn't go all the way to the back. So wherever he comes back in, that's where he stays. Oh, well, it doesn't matter what happened, whether it was mechanical, weather, or Jesse Awuji doing his thing. Plain and simple, that's something for me to consider. And then also in NASCAR, we give waiver rounds and we shuffle the lapped cars to the back. So even if he's behind 6 or 7 lap cars and still in second, he's gonna stay in second despite getting passed by 5 cars on track before he got back onto track. So there's no point for me in giving him a spot back because in any other situation he doesn't.
Right.
All right. So Drew, at this point, this is NASCAR covering NASCAR's ass for still allowing Jesse to continue to race. So let's break away from woke or joke for a minute, or I should say the scripted woke or joke for a minute. Woke or joke, Jesse Awuji needs to get off the track, period. He needs to be stripped of his NASCAR license and put somebody else in his race car.
Going to have to go woke. There's been a lot of instances in which I found that he's just not suitable for NASCAR. He's cool. Great guy. Thank you for, serving our country. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does here too. But this isn't the Navy. This is NASCAR. And he kind of fucking bamboozled Emmett Smith into making a race team for him. And Emmett Smith's probably just like, what am I doing? I mean, listen, it's great exposure, but that's not what this sport drives on. It drives on talent. And to think that you're going to have Ty Gibbs stay up there because he's going to try to pass, I don't even know where his head was at there, and just fucking bulldozed them into a corner. I mean, damn. So, yeah, I'm going to go woke.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I think he's a nice guy. I think he'd be a good contributor to the sport as a team owner. I just don't think he should be on the racetrack at this point. I know that NASCAR does not have a very strict licensing system. I know that they're very lenient, and probably that's the reason he's on the track in the first place. But there are other series that have taken people's licenses before. I mean, you could probably go back 10 or 15 years. There was a guy in F1 named Yuji Ide. He got his license taken away because he was a weapon on the track. So I don't see the benefit to him being on the racetrack.
So, complete. I don't know if I say woke that he needs to have a license or joke that he does still have one. But we need to get him out of the Xfinity series. He might be all right running his own late model. Running a super stock would really be kind of his speed to learn. But he does not know how to drive a race car at all. I'm honestly kind of surprised that he knew how to shift when he started racing. Like, just being fair enough. I'm just saying, we've heard guys like Kyle Larson say that, Chip Ganassi really got on him hard because he blew through transmissions because he didn't quite know what he was doing. I want to hit on Drew's comment here about the Ty Gibbs position. So if he doesn't hold his position, if he does keep his position, this is viable for, say, a teammate to dump a leader to benefit their teammate running second on a green-white checkered. That's fair. I mean, the whole Ty Gibbs keeping his spot opens up a can of worms.
I do think that some rules don't need to be cut and dry. I think that's one of them, where you can have ball and strike calls, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's fine. But I mean, even in his apology, he still kind of made it or tried to make it sound like Ty Gibbs' fault. He said that Ty was going to try to do a big arc into the corner. It's under fucking caution. You don't have to pass him right now. Get him on a straightaway.
Right. Yeah. I don't have
Jesse
any words.
Has pulled off the greatest bamboozlement in NASCAR history for allowing Emmett Smith to buy him a team.
Well, see, so that's what I don't understand, right? This man, he loves NASCAR, right? Let's not get around that. He is, he's a veteran. Thank you for your service, Jesse. You fucking suck at driving a race car. That's the exact thing that I tweeted on Saturday when this happened. Here's the deal. You have money that you are just blowing because you're wrecking cars week after week. You have pulled some guy who doesn't know anything about the nuances of NASCAR in Emmett Smith, and he's now spending money on race cars too. So you're basically wasting somebody else's money, burning it straight out of their wallet. I don't sit well with that.
I mean,
and there's plenty of talent that you could put behind the wheel of that car.
Kyle Weatherman gets in the car and he runs top 20. I mean, like, it's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy.
That's just I don't get it. There's plenty of guys that they could do that.
It's not a terrible car. Like, they've got decent enough equipment.
They've got the speed. That's the thing. He can put down a qualifying lap if he finishes one. I mean, like it's everything. He has no racecraft or anything because he's never been behind the wheel prior to his few truck starts. Like, I don't know.
It's a little bit sketchy. It's like, how in the world is he getting here? You know?
Yeah, this is Quinn House flashbacks.
Yeah, there needs to be like a little more extensive. Like, hey, what did you do to get this license?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just plenty of talent that you could put behind the wheel of that race car. I don't know why we have to choose you because there's no talent there. All right, so next up, we'll go ahead and get to the Cup race, and I'm going to start with Colton on this one. First Cup race at Gateway, woke or joke?
Woke. I liked the different tracks. I'm always a fan of different styles of tracks. Going to like having variety, so to speak. Was it the best kind of racing? No, but it was still different than just going to another mile and a half for a week. I would, however, like to see Pocono have 2 fucking dates. That'd be nice. And Dover would be sweet. But woke for trying a new track.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's woke. I mean, obviously, we've known that the new car kind of struggles with the flat tracks, so I think it's not a track issue. I think the track was really good on Sunday. You know, there's multiple grooves. You can move around. It's just as soon as the cars are fixed, I think Gateway is going to be a really good race.
I'm going to go woke. You have a brand new market now. They've been trying to get a race out in St. Louis for a long time, and finally they got one. And I have to say, it impressed me. I was a little nervous because drivers in practice were saying it's so hard to pass. And the amount of lanes that were opened up kind of felt like a mid-2010s Richmond almost, where you had like top side, middle, and you had a bottom groove all rolling together. The restarts were great. And as soon as everybody kind of stretched out, drivers were figuring out where their car was the best. And it made for a pretty entertaining race. And I got to say that the finish of that race, I wish it went green because I think that Logano-Kyle Busch battle was going to be epic. I mean, it was great for the final restart, but if that thing went green, man, it would have been fantastic.
Yeah, we've been bamboozled twice, 2 weeks in a row for these late race finishes, man. The Briscoe and Larson finish would have been amazing as well, and we just didn't get it either week. I'm going to have to go woke. I was genuinely surprised that this race was so good because I was a little bit worried about everything just because of what people were saying. You'll find out later in the show that I don't mind the races that we've had at the similar racetracks this year. So I don't know why I was a little bit off of it. But, yeah, I'm going to go woke. They made a very good event. They had cheap concessions. They had apparently the traffic going out of the racetrack was not bad at all because they made it limited to pedestrians' accessibility to get back to their cars, which is a very interesting way of managing traffic, in my opinion. And I think that is pretty ingenious because it took you longer to get to your car. So by the time you got to your car, there was not any traffic backing up. So that was something interesting that I took away from it, just as an event in general. So I think this is a home run. It sucks we had to lose Pocono, but I think it may be worthwhile to get into this new market because the stands were packed. They were like 96% full. If you look at 1 and 2 was the only place that wasn't sold out. But yeah, I'm 100% woke on that. All right, so I'm going to pass this one off to Keith first. And I'm just gonna say one name, and that's Ross Chastain.
Woke. This guy is a fucking treasure. This is one of the most important drivers we're going to have in our sport over the next decade. And I'm so damn thankful that we have him. Is he perfect? No. But Kyle fucking Busch. That's one name I have to say. Kyle fucking Busch. The amount of mistakes the guy would make, how hard he would drive, how many people he would piss off. But the thing is the fact that Kyle Busch was unapologetic. He's like, fuck it. Oh well. Ross Chastain was like, I fucked up. I made a mistake. And he went and he made the rightful apologies that, needed to go where they had to go. And he is just such a great talent. He drives so damn hard, and he fits the Justin Marks mold to a T. He wants somebody that's aggressive, that can get the most out of the equipment, and who can make themselves right where they need to be at the end of the race. So 1 billion% woke, Ross Chastain.
Yeah, I think I'm going to separate it into two categories. I will go woke for having him in the sport because I've said it for years that if he gets a good car, he's going to win races, and we all know what's happening now. The only thing I'm going to go joke for is just the decision making. Like he said, I mean, I know that Justin Marks said that, Ross did nothing wrong, but his own driver, like Keith said, admitted that he did make mistakes. Even if Marks said he didn't anything wrong, or even if Mark said he didn't do anything wrong, Chastain says he did. He knows that he messed up, but I do believe that I think he's going to learn over time that he's got to have give and take. I don't think he's malicious. I don't think it's like a Joey Logano situation where it's like, I want to move this guy out of my way. I think it's just he doesn't have give and take yet. And I think once he learns that, he's going to be even better. So I've always compared it to Brad Keselowski a few years back. I'd say 2014, when he didn't do anything blatant. It's just the way he did things. He got a lot of people mad because he didn't necessarily see it from the other perspective. He doesn't understand, what's wrong with what I did? It's like, well, you wrecked the guy for 6th in stage 2. Yeah. It's like, if he was on the other end, he'd probably see it more often. But I think it's a learning thing. And I think what Elliott did to him yesterday, or what Hamlin did to him yesterday, that's the way to teach him.
I'm going to say woke for having Chastain in the sport, just like Nate. Joke for the kind of driving he's doing right now. I am willing to repeal that joke and turn it into a woke if he is able to take what he dishes later this season. If he is in a spot where he is battling for a playoff spot, maybe, the last round, the cutoff race somewhere, or he's got a really good kind of championship run heating up, and he runs into a Chase, he runs into a Hamlin, any of the number of guys he's kind of messed up over the last 2 weeks, and they make it tough on him, I don't want to see him bitch about it. At that point, clean the slate, try again next year. If he does, I'd probably keep the joke, but if he's able to take it and say, you know what, I knew I was going to have this coming, yada, yada. Awesome. Love the humility. I was making jokes about him during the race. I put out like a bulldozer tweet, like, oh no, Ross Chastain coming. But all in all, he's great to have in the sport because he gives us something to talk about.
I'm going to have to go with joke for the same reasons you guys went with woke. I think he is good for the sport. Don't get me wrong. We need a heel. He is definitely being that. What you said about Kyle Busch, though, Keith, is that he was unapologetic about it. I think that it is a joke that Ross Chastain looked like a whiny little crybaby when he was apologizing, because I don't think that was sincere at all. I think that somebody jumped his ass in the garage, whether it be his crew chief, Justin Marks, who later defended him on Twitter but doesn't say that to his face, whatever. I don't buy it. We've seen this guy race this way his whole career. We've seen him race more aggressively than any other driver on the paddock, and I respect that. But what I don't respect is the fact that there's no way that Ross Chastain is going to change his driving style overnight. So I think him at Gateway, because of his post-race interview, joke.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
To the Marks comment, have you guys ever heard the phrase defend in public, correct in private?
Right.
It has to do a lot with like relationships and shit. I think that's where Justin Marks is going. I wouldn't be surprised if we heard him come over the radio and start MFing him a little bit, and then come out in public and start defending him, because that's still his guy. He's not going to go away from Ross.
Right.
I do think that tough love's a thing, though. I mean, imagine if Joe Gibbs came out after Kyle Busch wrecked Ron Hornaday and said, "Oh, I think Kyle did nothing wrong." At that point, it's like you gotta scald him in public too, because it's so egregious.
Yeah,
I think
that's fair. Yeah,
I feel like Hamlin even said it himself. He's like, if you just keep defending that or enabling, you're just enabling it.
He did delete the tweet.
He did, yeah, and I do think that if Marks keeps the same energy, I can't wait for this fight. If it's his car getting wrecked, I would like to see him keep the same energy. If he can't, then that just shows a double standard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, I can't say anything else. The dude is doing what he's doing, but you can't just live your life one way and then say something else. About as much as Michael McDowell doing something to somebody and then pulling his thing because he's done it before. Anyways, I'll finish this one off with Nathan first, because it's about our favorite driver, Denny Hamlin. Two-part Walker joke. First off is his retaliation during the race, and secondly is his quotes after the race.
I'm going to go woke on both of them, to be honest with you. Woke for the first one because he got his point across better than anybody, I think, could have in that situation. If he right rears Chastain, he gets suspended. That makes him look stupid. If he goes out there and wrecks Chastain, then Chastain probably gets mad at him. But what he did, he just made it miserable for him. He didn't even touch him. He just made it miserable. And he almost, he made Chastain kind of have his tail between his legs for a little bit. Chastain was legitimately scared to pass him, even though Hamlin was not going to do anything. I think that was kind of a good mental chess game sort of thing going on, where he made Chastain worry. I think that's something that has a bigger psychological effect than just going out there and wrecking a guy. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny too. I mean, I've seen people do it in video games before, but I've never seen anybody do it in real life, let alone to the extent he did. And I think it was a smarter thing to do than just wrecking the guy. And to the comments, I wasn't necessarily pleased with the whole you got to fence them hard, but at the same time, this guy's had his back broken from presumably retaliation at Fontana a few years ago. He's had numerous races taken away from him from getting run over, and he's been the poster child of the one getting pushed around. So if he does snap and push back, the same way Kenseth did, I think he's kind of earned the right to snap, because he's been silent for long enough. He hasn't done anything like that long enough. I think eventually, the guy who gets pushed around so many times, it's only a matter of time before they snap. And I think that was about as close to snapping as he's gotten so far.
All right, Keith.
I'm going to go walk on both. First off, the on-track incident I thought was great. I loved the Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin tag team in a matter of one turn. But to Nathan's point, I mean, it was such a subtle gesture, but it had such a big meaning of, you keep doing this, this is going to be a lot worse than what this actually is. Just sliding up in front of him, making it hard for him. And that on-track message sends a lot, not just to Ross Chastain either. That sends a big message to everybody in the garage area that you're going to keep on coming after me. I'm going to make sure that your life's going to be a lot harder than it actually is. And as far as the comments are concerned, to Nathan's point as well, I'm not the biggest fan of the fencing part, but you also have to put it out there that I'm tired. I'm tired of having such a great career, 48 career wins. That is insane. He is 2 away from 50, and yeah, he doesn't have a championship to his name. Oh well, he's got 3 500s. He's got a Southern 500, a Coca-Cola 600. Right. He's got a lot of different accolades to his name, and on top of all of that, he has just under 2 decades of NASCAR sanctioned experience. This dude's been up, down, and around. He's had so many different incidents with different drivers, from champions to rookies. I mean, you name it, he's gone through it. And in the last, I want to say 2 years, ever since his Twitter rants have really started to come about. I think that he's just gotten fed up, completely fed up with everybody, how NASCAR runs, how drivers run, how owners run, and he has hit his peak. And I think especially now that he is a team owner himself, he has a very different perspective and a different take. And I mean, I listened to the Dale Jr. download a couple weeks ago. Fan-freaking-tastic. I mean, and he hit so many good points, and he's tired. He's tired of being pushed around. He's tired of being treated like a second-class veteran. This dude is as dangerous as anybody, and he also has no problem dishing it back out. And we've seen that time and time again. So, yeah, I mean, Denny Hamlin, woke and woke.
I'm also going to go woke and woke. Hamlin is a team owner, which is probably the only reason I think that he didn't completely wad Chastain's shit up, if we're honest here. I think, like Keith and Nate both said, like he's just kind of getting sick of it. He's got to play veteran. He's got to play the mediator in some of these before he does decide to retire, however long down the road that may be. But he has to be kind of that powerhouse in the garage and on the track that guys will have to respect. We know that Harvick, the Truex ain't going to do shit, but those two guys really aren't going to be around much longer. KFB, there's not going to be many guys left. And eventually if it doesn't get taken care of and the torch get handed on to some of these younger guys, it's just going to be rampant here in a few years. So I really like what Denny's doing. Again, I don't agree with the fencing hard shit. I don't think he'd ever just completely right rear someone at 170. I think Denny's way too empathetic for that. But I hope, yeah, he may just completely fucking snap. But I mean, he's starting to really stand up for himself and the sport in general. Do you guys see how after Stenhouse kind of dumped Bubba, Denny came up and started beating on Stenhouse's bumper? Like, hey, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's tired of it. Like,
I like
he
new
said
Denny.
it like many times. I think earlier this year, he's like, "How do you feel about the younger drivers?" He's like, "Well, I think they don't race with enough respect. I'm tired of getting run over." So, I think you're seeing it now.
Yeah, I think that's why I'll have to go woke on everything. I want to defend the comment though. From what I took from it, I don't think he's going to fence anybody. He's somebody that talks about driver safety all the time. I think what he meant by these guys need to hit the fence hard is these guys are so hard-headed that they're not going to learn any respect until somebody does that. And I don't feel like that was a threat. I feel like it was more, these guys are just too hard-headed and they need to get their shit checked. I don't think it was, I'm going to put him in the wall because fuck him. I don't think that was what it was. But let's move to the meat of tonight's podcast, and that is some homework that I had you guys do. We did some race rankings. It is Fox's last weekend this weekend at Sonoma before we go to Nashville Superspeedway.
Thank God.
And
thankfully,
swap over to new NBC. And you can hear it from the guys already. They are tired of this Fox season.
We're done.
But were the races that bad this year? They weren't complimented by the broadcasts. So what I did is I had everybody rank the races from 1 to 17, including the All-Star and Clash, not including duels number 1 and 2 from Daytona. So I'm going to go over our top 5 and our bottom 5 that we all picked, averaged out, and then we're going to talk about some different stuff about who picked what that that didn't make the average top 5, bottom 5. Why were there races that we didn't put in either spot, and what were their what was good or not good about them? Why were they just kind of in that meh column? And then us versus the Gluck poll basically is what we're going to do. So the top 5 average races from the 4 of us were the Coke 600, Auto Club, Las Vegas, Kansas, and Dover. And I have one question to ask all you guys. What's in common there?
1.5 mile tracks.
Right. Intermediate 1.5 mile tracks. We stole a half a mile from Dover and gave it to Auto Club. But yeah, these are all intermediate tracks. This is the shit that we have been hounding NASCAR on for
Yes,
the
we
past
needed
few
it.
years. We've
At what
got to make the
expense?
big tracks. At what expense?
Yeah,
Well,
I know. The
we'll
short
get
tracks.
there next. We'll get to the bottom
Maybe
five. But
we can just rip the diffuser off and we
we're
race
not
good
there
everywhere.
yet,
Who
Nathan.
knows?
Hold on. We're talking about the top 5 races. So I'll start off with Keith because, Keith, you are the only person that had Dover in their top 5. However, due to our rankings, that put that solidified it in the top 5. So what do you think about these races, and why were they our top 5?
So I think that the last 5 years or so, ever since about 2017-ish, there's been a very prevalent decline in the intermediate racetracks, from the 1.5 to the 2-mile tracks and to just the high-speed ovals. They've really suffered because of our package. The short tracks, they were great, but the intermediates, they suffered big time. And especially once they brought the high downforce package around in 2019, it's been insufferable. I mean, the Coke 600 was like borderline getting out of the crown jewel phase for me.
Right.
Especially after last season's. Last season's
That was
was
bad. Yeah.
abysmal, absolutely abysmal, and that they've really brought this back to life. And the reason why I put Dover at my number 5, I was at the race, and I have been to every Dover race since the fall of 2015, and the only race that would have beat that race would be the 2016 race, and that's because of the fantastic battle between Kenseth, Larson, and Elliott. But outside of that, from start to finish, Dover was one of the best races I have seen at the track in the longest time. And I mean, everybody was just having a great time. Barely anybody left the frickin' stands. And it was one of the most packed houses I've ever seen at Dover. And I've been going for a long time. I want to say the last time I had it that packed was like 2009. So it was fan-frickin-tastic. And it really drove it home that they nailed it with this package for those racetracks.
I want to hit on one comment you made that kicked us off, that you said you put it in the top 5 because you were there. I actually have a name for this. I call it the Dakota Rutledge effect. Because if you ever talk to Dakota Rutledge on Twitter, whenever he goes to a race, it is the best fucking race he's ever seen. Like, I swear, we could have put him at, I mean, I think he probably wasn't there, but you could have put him at the Coke 600 in 2021, and he would have called it a fucking barn burner.
Nah, man, listen.
There's no fucking way. That is the only race
that.
in my life I've ever almost fell asleep at. There's no fucking way that he would
let me tell
race.
you, man, I do not have the Dakota Rutledge effect because I was at the spring 2019 Pocono race, and I don't know how I made it through that race without just being like, what the fuck are we doing? What is this?
550 package Pocono. Yeah, that was not it.
Dude, it was horrific fucking bull. So I do not have the Dakota Rutledge effect.
Well,
Dover has produced some fucking snooze fest, man. I mean, 2019, both races, come on.
Yeah, it was rough, yeah.
That was atrocious. Horrible.
So, Dakota, if you ever watch this, I've called you out on it before in our group chat.
We love you, Dakota.
I just named it.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our worst 5 tracks. And that is starting from the bottom. The worst race was the All-Star race. Then we go to Martinsville as second worst. Third worst was Coda. Fourth worst was Atlanta. And fifth worst was Gateway. So what do you guys think is the commonality between all of these races and why we didn't like them? I'll start with Nathan.
There seems like a lot of shorter, flatter ovals. I don't think Gateway, like I said, I don't think Gateway was a bad race. So I put it in there in the bottom 5 just because there weren't any other races to pick from. 9 out of 10 times, I would have said that this is an all right race, but there's pretty high standards this year. So that's the only reason I put it there. Other than that, Martinsville, that race was not good. It was cold. The tires didn't wear out. The brakes were bigger, so it shortened up the braking zone, so it's harder to pass. Shifting was another massive problem because you could mess up a corner completely and just drop a gear and still exit at the same speed as the guy behind you who nailed the corner. So everything in that race just catered to like as little racing as possible. So like that's why it was my worst.
I would say, yeah, I agree with everything Nate said about the shorter, flatter tracks. Coda, there was obviously a race length issue that we all talked about, that it was just way too long for what it needed to be. The finish really helped spike it in the Gluck poll.
No.
Other than the last two, I could still see being at their bottom slots at the end of this year, barring any terrible races. Coda's probably still going to sit in the top 5. But I think, like Nate said, I think it's just circumstance of every other race has been great, and we kind of ran out of half decent races to put above that bottom 5. Like, I didn't put Atlanta in my bottom 5. Keith didn't put Coda in his bottom 5. Alex didn't put Gateway in his bottom 5. So, I think it's just perspective at that point. And just like Nate said, every other race has been pretty fucking good. So how many can you honestly put down there?
Well, let's go ahead and get into these that we did or didn't put in the bottom 5.
No, Keith.
So, you have anything to say?
I mean, when it comes down to the bottom 5, I mean, the average bottom 5, it really it all came down to the flat tracks. The flat tracks suffered immensely. Richmond's been hard. It's really been a driver's racetrack. From a fan perspective, unless you're at the racetrack, I don't think TV really does a great job at presenting many races, especially Fox. But when it comes down to it, I didn't watch Martinsville. I listened to it on MRN while I was at work. And I was just like, so is anything happening? Or is because I heard one pass for the lead and that was it. So outside, and it wasn't even on track. I think it was on pit road. Yeah. So
yeah,
it was atrocious. It's one of the worst Martinsville races. And I'm like, damn, I'm so grateful I'm not watching this right now. As far as like Coda and Gateway go, I think it's definitely a perspective thing. Coda, I really enjoyed the fact that we were at a different racetrack, the fact that we had a road course, and the finish was exciting. Wasn't the best road course race. And then Gateway was, it's flat track. Lots of different lanes, but at the same time, once you kind of get spread out, unless your car is really hooked up, you can kind of get around to the drivers. It gets a little harder to pass, So I think with this newer car, and I didn't even touch the All-Star race because fuck that shit. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it came down to just the flat tracks. So, I mean, listen, this is the first year of this car. I'm sure in 2013 we didn't have all the greatest races with the Gen 6. It comes down to just fine tuning, so it's kind of bumpy start, but we'll see where it goes.
100% perfect last point that you just made. 2013 Daytona 500. One of the worst races that I've ever seen. The Gen 6 went from the absolute worst plate package to the absolute best plate package that we've ever seen. Not to say that won't happen with this next gen car. You guys, first of all, Colton, what do we talk about with race links on this podcast? We never say that they're too long. What the fuck?
Nah, no, Coda was too fucking long.
Not too long. It was not too long.
I'll say Atlanta felt a little
No. We had too many cautions. We had stage cautions in there that broke that up, which broke up strategy racing, which made that race worse. And then also we had green white checkered after green white checkered. Atlanta, same thing. We never saw a green flag pit stop. Too many
that was
cautions and everything. If you look at those two races, that's why they're on the bottom for us, in my opinion. I did not put Gateway on there because I thought we saw what I said earlier, a little bit better racing. But I have to have a talk with Keith Marek right now. I have to have a big talk with Keith Marek.
Now. Let's do it.
Here is the ranking that Richmond Raceway got from Colton, number 4, from Nathan, number 5, and from Alex, number 6. Keith Marek, you put 14th as the Richmond race. Can I ask, what the hell is wrong with you? That race was classic NASCAR, classic flat track, and classic driver track with strategy. What the hell is wrong with you?
The only thing that saved that race was strategy.
I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that.
That was the only thing that saved it for me. But if I'm taking it as a whole, if we looked at how Richmond raced with this race car, it looked like a Richmond race to me. And the only thing that really saved it was the fact that at the very end, strategy came into play. And the fact that we had to have strategy come into play to make it a decent race. Richmond's been a tough racetrack. I know it's a driver's racetrack, but I mean, passing is damn hard at that racetrack, and it can get a little difficult to watch a race there. But I mean, Richmond, it's had its moments. 2014 was a solid race in the spring, fall, different story. But it really comes down to just race conditions, how the car is racing, the drivers that are running in the event. So I didn't find it the most entertaining. The only thing that really saved it for me was the fact that Hamlin and Byron had an epic strategy duel.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The one thing I will say that really boosted it for me is that the fact that it was a long organic finish, like you said.
Yes.
I feel like it was something that NASCAR hasn't had lately. I think 7 of the 15 races have ended with like a under 10 lap run. And then at least 3 or 4 of them have been green, white checkers. And don't get me wrong, those are exciting. But do I want every single race to be a green, white checker? No.
Absolutely not.
I think that race was something that we didn't have a lot of this year. Just a long green flag run, strategy coming into play. It was a nice change of pace. So that's one of the reasons.
If we're talking about organic finishes, I think the most surprising organic finish that's happened this season is Talladega. 63 consecutive laps under green. I mean, that was killer. I love watching Talladega go green. I don't like smashing up race cars, throwing them in the air, and having 15 green, white checkers. I love watching that race play out organically, watching the drivers make their moves, and I really wish that we had the driver-to-driver communication on the radio, because that would have made it a really interesting event. To have 63 laps go all the way and have the drivers talk to each other, that would have been epic. But, I mean, when it comes down to it, I freaking love organic finishes.
I can't fault you for that. I do want to. You kind of segued into something that I was going to ask next, though. You said you love Talladega, and then it was amazing because of the 63 lap finish. But if you noticed from earlier, those guys that have been paying attention, Talladega wasn't in the top 5 or the bottom 5. But neither was Daytona. So I want to kind of ask you guys, the 4 races that weren't in one of our bottom or top 5s were Talladega in 8th, 9th place, Daytona 500, 10th place, Darlington, and 11th place, Phoenix. What did these races have in common that had us thinking that they weren't the best races or the worst races of this season so far?
I don't really know. I mean, I just put them there because I couldn't really think of a way to define them. I think Talladega was an okay race, but I do wish I felt like they didn't do anything until off turn 4 in the last lap. I mean, it felt the same way with the 500, except they were double file and not single file. So I had no idea where to put those races. Darlington, I feel like it definitely got helped by the events. I think the multi-car crash kind of spiced things up at the end, and it wasn't just the main contenders. I think I don't really know how to describe it. I just think that I put them there because I had nothing sway me, like good or bad. Like,
Keith, what about you? What about those 4 middle of the ground races?
They were races. There was nothing too crazy about them. Like Daytona had a bunch of crashes, had a flip, had a psychotic ending to the whole event. Talladega, as much as I love an organic finish, much to Nathan's point, nothing really happened outside of that. It was a lot of racing. Darlington is a tire eating racetrack. So that has always been fun. But I think with this race car, with the symmetrical bodies, it didn't really take to it as well as like the Gen 6 would have. And then our last race was Phoenix. Phoenix it's a hit or miss. I know that there's been talks about pulling. There was talks about pulling a Phoenix race off the schedule because of the fact that it hasn't really produced the racing that I think that it had hoped. I think the dog leg, for whatever reason, ever since they introduced that, it's hit or miss, complete hit or miss. I miss the 2010s and prior configuration of Phoenix, but no, I mean it was just solid racing, but nothing too exciting, nothing too memorable, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that not every race has to be a barn burner.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the sum of it. You guys hit them. There was nothing to really sway me either way. The only other one that I had, we hit on Richmond already. Yeah, they're just mid races.
So I'm going to say 2 points here. First of all, I think that these lists are pretty interesting because we really only had, I think, 2 bad races this year, right? So I think that our points have all been skewed because the races have been so good this year. We've had stellar races. I'd say 7 out of the 17 races have been stellar compared to the last 3 years. Our mid races this year are good races with the Gen 6 in
Right.
a 18 package. And then you had Martinsville and All-Star Race, which were the 2 bad races that we've had this year. Our other bad races were mid races for the last generation of car. But I want to say something defending my boy Phoenix, because I've trashed on this track since we went to basically the Gen 6 platform after we had that 2013 race there with Edwards and Harvick at the line, especially when they've moved the start-finish line. I've been trashing this track because it's had the championship, whatever. This was the most fun Phoenix race I've ever seen on the new configuration since all of those changes happened. Flag to flag. It wasn't something that happened at the end of the race. It was, for me, very enjoyable flag to flag. Again, another driver's racetrack. There was passing and strategy in that race, and it came down to a pretty damn good finish. So I had it 7th, where it was double digits for the rest of you guys. So I just wanted to finish that real quick. One more oddity before we go and compare to the Gluck poll. I know we're running a little bit out of time here, but Bristol Dirt, 14th and 15th for myself and Colton, respectively. Why did we put it so far low? Just really quick, me and you, Colton.
First off, I was very vocal that I wasn't a huge fan of how they set up the race. We did have a huge discussion about race length on here. I just didn't like the format of it that much to me, and it was just kind of a mid race. It didn't really have enough to kick it over some of the other tracks that I put in the center. The finish was good.
I think.
Yeah, good finish.
I think. Yeah. So I think for me, the prep for the track was so much better than it was last year, and I praised them for that on our Bristol episode, and I said the race was so much better than last year, but still we sacrificed 250 laps and concrete Bristol and a Sunday night on Easter for that, and it didn't produce as good of a race as it could have, so that was up for me. So finally, let's get into the Gluck poll. I'm going to list the top 5 and the bottom 5 for the public's reaction to was this a good race or not. And then we'll go from there. So first was Auto Club, which was second for us. Second was the Coke 600, which was first for us. Third for us was Las Vegas. Fourth for us was Kansas. And the one I want to talk about first is 5th place for the Gluck poll was the Daytona 500. That was dead center for us. Why was the Daytona 500 so praised? Is it just because NASCAR racing is back? And what is the validity of the poll being done after each race rather than like we're doing it right now, half the season?
Oh, man. I think for a couple of reasons the results get skewed. Obviously, it depends on who wins. And then another factor I would like to mention is like Alex said, it's all about when the race is. Like the NASCAR race after they came back from COVID, that got like a huge rating. It wasn't like the greatest race; it just rated highly. So
Yeah.
I think it needs to be done in a different way. Not like, was it a good race? Yes or no. It needs to be. You need to separate other things. Like, do you like the winner? Or do you like the race?
Keith?
What do you got?
I think the reason why Daytona lands there is because of the lead up to the 500. A lot of people were talking about how it wasn't going to be how the Gen 6 was. A lot of drivers having problems passing. They were having problems making runs. And now social media is so big, as we all know. And that kind of spread like wildfire for a little bit. And everybody has in their head it's going to be a trash 500. It's going to be a crappy package. We go out into the 500 and, this is not the Dakota Rutledge effect, I promise. But being at the racetrack, there was passes for the lead. There was some good moves all around the racetrack. And I don't know how television captured it, because television makes a very big difference in how a fan's perspective is. I hope that it presented it the way that I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of passing, lots of fun, lots of excitement. And it was a lot better than what I had anticipated. I was in my head walking into the place. I'm like, listen, if I see a 2013 500, it is what it is. I'm at Daytona, but it was anything but. And I think the fan reaction to that, as well as it being the Daytona 500, I have to say, with all the excitement of the next gen car, the fact that it wasn't a crap race and being Daytona, it all really played into it being a top 5 track.
So the Gluck poll has overstayed its welcome because of the amount of skew that we get, like Alex and Nate both mentioned. The finish of the race heavily dictates whether or not it's good. Cody was voted 8th on the Gluck poll, and none of us put it higher than 12th. Also, Richmond was 14th in the Gluck poll. Keith, that's right where you put it. I think TV has a lot to do with this. I think the winner has a lot to do with this. And then obviously, like I said, the finish. If the last 2 laps are great, it's probably going to get a good rating. And Nate, you said it earlier before the show that you've seen people vote no on the race just because Joey Logano won. I think that it has overstayed its welcome because people do not use it for an actual reflection on the race. Maybe if he ran the poll like 4 or 5 days after the race, it might be a little bit better. But it's not useful to me anymore.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything. I was actually leading myself up to ask those questions and say something about Keith with a 14th place and say something about Coda being in 8th place, but Colton just had to steal all my thunder. So I guess great minds and all that. But yeah, so I'll go through the rest of the top, or the bottom 5 for the Gluck poll. That was the worst all-star race, obviously. Second worst, Martinsville, obviously. So obviously the fans concur that those 2 races were absolute ass. And then third worst was Bristol Dirt, surprisingly, because I thought a lot of race fans
Kyle Busch won.
loved it. Yeah, well, you're right. And then it was 14th Richmond and 13th Atlanta. So I don't even have to talk about Bristol Dirt now that Nathan said the exact reason what I was going to do. I want to pass this off to Keith, though. You and I, before this Atlanta race, we had a lot of texting back and forth about whether or not we were excited about it, but because, yes, it's a race and we're race fans, but also we lost Atlanta. And it wound up being something that you and I both agreed that we were entertained on. I don't quite remember if we said that we both agreed and that we still didn't like it. But after seeing all the stuff on Twitter and how much praise this new package, super speedway hybrid shit, whatever you want to call it, got, why do you think it was rated so low in the poll?
You got a lot of fans that really wanted to see old Atlanta. And I think that it was kind of not a matter of they didn't enjoy it, but a matter of the fact that they didn't get old Atlanta. Leading up to Atlanta, you had already had Auto Club, which old surface, tons of fucking fun. Las Vegas, ton of fun. So now you have 2 racetracks that you go back 1, 2, 3 years, and they don't produce nearly as good of a race as, maybe the mid 2000s did. And now you have a package that can totally encapsulate and encompass everything that we love about NASCAR. And now you take away this wild Atlanta surface that, even with the terrible fucking package that we had in 2019, 2021, I still enjoyed the fact that drivers were still slipping and sliding, even with enough downforce to fucking keep a plane on the fucking ground. But I think that when it comes down to it, a lot of the fans really just wanted to see Atlanta be Atlanta. And with it being a plate race, it's not what they're used to. It was kind of a shell shock to a degree, I think, to have a racetrack such as Atlanta be acting as a Daytona, but half the size. So I think it was a lot for the average fan and the diehard fan to take in.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. And we called questionability. Colton said the pole needs to go. That's a great point. That just going into a race, these guys wanted something else. That skewed the results, basically. I mean, that's what I took from your points. I'm going to disagree with that point, Drew, because we raced there the year prior. But I will say I do have to ask Colton about Atlanta next, because he was one of the guys that didn't put it in the bottom five. The only one of us that didn't put it in the bottom five. And I did, and I Dakota Rutledge my way to not liking that, despite being there. So I mean,
I didn't think it was absolutely horrid. I think it does have potential in the future. I thought that the passing could be improved upon, but how do we do that, really? I thought the back half of the race was a hell of a lot better than the front half of the race. I even said it multiple times on here that if the whole race would have been like the first 250 miles, I would have fucking hated it. But the back half really kind of redeemed it. And also, I think it's a little bit of looking forward through rose-colored glasses, because I don't want to believe that's a fucking bad race, because I'm going to my one race a year there here in like 3 weeks. So yeah. I don't I'm not really hoping it's a bad race. Let me kind of convince myself it was good.
All right. Well, I know, Keith, you got to get to work here soon. Is there any final points we want to make about the racing this year? Just general statements.
I gotta say, with the storylines, with the cars, with the racing, NASCAR's fucking back. That I can say 100%. If we're sacrificing a couple short tracks with poor racing right now, it is what it is. We're gonna look past it, and we're gonna hope that next season is better. And for all we know, when we go back to Martinsville in October, it'll be a hell of a lot better. Maybe we'll have a different gear ratio in which we don't have to shift, and now you're giving drivers, a lot more power in that respect. Outside of that, for the majority of the schedule the last few years, it's been mile and a halves, and it's kind of been trimmed down to kind of fit road courses and short tracks. But to have such a diverse mix of racetracks, and for the vast majority of them to be really fucking good, NASCAR is back. The drivers have been exciting and intense. The racing's been fantastic. Not every race has to be a barn burner. I think a lot of race fans, especially the casual fan, just wants it to be psychotic all the time. And I am totally happy with having just a normal casual race. And we've seen that, like in certain situations like Darlington. Darlington wasn't the best race, but it certainly wasn't the worst. I would take a Darlington over a shit Martinsville any day of the week, and that's okay. But NASCAR is back. The excitement's there. The fans are coming out. They're sold out the Coke 600. Sold out the Coke 600, and they got a great race. So NASCAR is redeeming itself in a big way with this race car. We have a few more years up ahead of us to really kind of drive it home. This race car can be great for the racing, for the casual and the diehard fan. I know we want to cater to the casual fan, but the diehards are here, and they're sitting right here right now. And I got to say, I don't think that we're all that disappointed with how the racing's gone this season. So NASCAR has found its way back to prominence, I think, with a little more advertisement and some more sponsorship activation. We're really going to see this sport take off, and maybe not hit early 2000s levels, but we can hit some good popularity again.
Well, Keith, I want to thank you for coming on. Man, you are a gem. That last little rant that you went on, you are the best of us. When it comes to passionate fans, there's no one more passionate about NASCAR that's more positive than Keith Marek. So I want to say that you're always a breath of fresh air when you come on here, and I appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
NASCAR's the shit, man.
Yes. Anything else that anybody wants to say before we sign off?
Other than that, I'm looking forward to Sonoma. I love this
The
racetrack.
shoot's back. The
Yes.
shoot's
Oh
fucking
my
back.
God! Yes, the shoot is back.
I love Sonoma. I love the fact that it's a different type of road race. It's not like a demo derby. You're racing the track. It eats the tires. You know, it's a different element of skill, and I like seeing it.
Hell yeah.
Sonoma, I'm so glad it's here. It is my mark for the summer in Wyoming because usually past the Sonoma date, it's going to be hot for at least a couple weeks. So I'm stoked about that. It's finally summer up here. If y'all are going to Atlanta, let me know. Let Alex know. Nate is still a maybe. But
Jared will be there with us.
Jared will be there with us.
Cody Powers will be with us from Left.
Cody fucking Powers. Dalton Good
should be there.
And
then
Dakota
a couple of other guys.
Yeah.
Dakota will be there, obviously, because that's his home track.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Rattlesnake will be there as well. Yeah. So there will be a very big group of us to come hang out with us on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thanks again, Keith. Make the trek down in July if you have time. We're all going to be there.
Listen, man, I got Pocono coming up, and I am dumb stoked about Pocono. I hope that that's a catalyst for NASCAR to bring back the Indianapolis Oval. Maybe we might get that back. If we can get the Indy Oval back, because I've been hearing some inklings that we might have a doubleheader next year. And if there is a fucking doubleheader, my ass is the first person to buy a ticket to that event because Indy is fantastic. The road course is great, and I think the Oval will be freaking awesome. It's the Indy Oval. You have to see at least a race there, man. So
I want to say this. I just want to say this. Roger Penske, if you are listening to this man down here, the first time that he came on our show, he talked about the Indianapolis road course. Or maybe it was the second time. I don't remember. We talked about the Indianapolis road course. And he said, you know what would be dope, because I hate the Brickyard 400 is gone, if they raced the road course with Xfinity on Saturday and went and raced the Brickyard 400 on Sunday. So if you do that, if that happens, this man needs VIP access, and because we're his friends, let us come to him.
Damn right, yo. I can bring 3 guests, and you guys are it.
Hell yeah. So, yeah, thanks again, Keith, to coming on with us, and let's do this again. You're always welcome. Like I said, you're the most positive of us passionate fans, and we love that. For everybody else watching or listening, thank you for tuning in once again to FanFuel Motorsports Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at FanFuel MSM, capital F, capital F, capital MSM. You can be looking forward to an announcement that we've got coming here soon that these guys don't even know about yet. So let's see you guys next week at the same time. And all right. Bye.